I'm super excited to get into this episode. We are chatting with Steph and Gabi from Whoa, That's Fresh Publicity. They are the PR magicians behind some of our favorite alumni, including M.A.G.S and Rationale. Steph is the owner and founder of Whoa, That's Fresh and has over 10 years of experience in the music industry and beyond. Gabi is a publicity manager with them and currently pursuing her master's in digital marketing. I'm super excited to chat with both of you. I think the combined experience of you two is going to be so interesting to talk about, and I'm just very excited. So welcome.
Yay, thank you. Thanks for having us.
Yes, excited.
You literally have like the power squad right here. She's like my right hand and has been there.
Oh, that makes me so happy.
Literally, yeah, from the very beginning.
So kind of just to open up the conversation, what was the first thing you guys listened to this morning?
Oh, this is actually a really funny one. M.A.G.S.'s manager last night at like 2 a.m. because he sleeps like a vampire. His name is Tom. Hi, Tom. He sent us Donna Lewis, I Love You Always and Forever. And it was the first thing that hit. It literally is like right here. It's the first thing that hit my text this morning. And he literally said, "You all need this first thing in the morning. You're welcome." So that
that's
exactly
amazing.
That's honestly a much better story than I was going to say.
It's actually like, I actually have a story today because I got this Donna Lewis song from Tom at 2 a.m.
For me, honestly, it's just I was listening to our client. I'm just supporting our brand right here.
Does that happen often? You're just like, now I like woke up and I'm like, okay, somebody else dropped something else. Like, let's get some streams on it.
That's literally, that's how I work. Like, we had a release that happened this past Friday. So I'm just over here, like, this past Monday and Tuesday, just like listening to the album like, over and over and over again.
Yeah. And I'm also, my second thing is I'm listening to a new client that just signed on this morning and checking out their album. Thank you. to be announced. It's somebody that we think that you're gonna like, actually. So we're definitely gonna talk about it.
Ooh, very exciting.
But yeah, I was jamming that album as well this morning, kind of getting pumped and prepped for their album campaign for next year.
That's so crazy. I mean, so for me, I deal with you guys in regards to new releases, people to be interviewed in the future, stuff like that. So can you guys kind of give us the definition lightly of what you guys do that isn't pertaining to what I understand of? So like, I mean, I know that's like a very loaded question, but
yeah, I would say there is no light definition to PR. That's my definition. No, I would say the best way I could describe it is where one spoke of the wheel of an artist's team. So like an artist, you've already heard about the booking agents, you've heard about the managers, you've heard about the radio promoters, which is actually separate from what we do. You've heard about the record labels and like these other people behind the scenes, and public relations or the publicist is just another spoke of that wheel. So we're part of an artist's team. We're not the end all be all of an artist's success. But what we do is collaborate with the rest of the team and develop stories or hooks that are going to be appealing to the general public. And like, it used to be just the media where it was newspapers and, radio station interviews and magazines. But now with the internet and social media and TikTok and Instagram, it literally is PR is scaled so wide. I mean, it could be anything from, approaching larger brands such as Five Guys, which we've done before, we did that with M.A.G.S. It could be something, like, as everyone knows, MTV, everybody knows alternative press and, those traditional outlets, or it could be something completely out of left field. And then there's the other layer of inviting local people out, whether they're influencers or media or a sponsorship person that lives in the area, to a show. So, right now I'm going to bring back M.A.G.S because you know him, but, M.A.G.S is on tour right now, and, we're getting some, press contacts in to check out the show, or even just, industry people. We're kind of building up his guest list and making sure that there's people continuously talking about it. So it's every which way we could spread word of mouth. It's word of mouth marketing at its finest.
Incredible.
And that's the shortest definition. Gabi, continue.
Now cut it to 3 words. No.
Now, Gabi, put that in 1 sentence for me.
Basically what Steph said, like that's to the T, honestly. Like, um, it's people honestly like they kind of get confused because like obviously digital marketing and publicity do go hand in hand, but publicity like it's technically its own entity, you know, like there are certain procedures, there's certain things that we do that aren't necessarily pertaining to like digital marketing. Um, so yeah, like Steph said, the line is kind of blurred now. Like now it's like we reach out to influencers. Um, you know, like we reach out for those unique opportunities because there's other things that artists can talk about that isn't necessarily pertaining to their music. You know, like if they have other interests, like that is good stuff for us to use, and that's something that we pursue.
Yeah, that was so beautifully said. Oh my goodness.
They get the artist's music and personality out there.
Yeah.
So you guys personally, I know you're going to have very different stories, but getting into music publicity specifically, there's obviously some kind of passion there. So how did you guys end up choosing this is what you currently want to do?
Yeah, I was, so it's funny because we actually work with a lot of people now from my past, but shout out Matt Burns, Smart Punk Records. Matt Burns' dad owned a venue that I used to like book bands at when we were kids in high school. So it's pretty funny how far back we've gone. That was a thing. Like just as a kid in high school, I've always been a music lover. My mom used to work in music as well with like a very notable classic rock progressive band. So I just always grew up around music. My stepdad also is a producer, and that's just always been a passion. I love bands, which is silly because they're crazy, but yeah, no, I started literally just, you know, booking local shows and being a friend of bands and helping, you know, local DIY acts here and there. And through that, just grew a network and kind of found my passion within PR as, you know, being that I like being behind the scenes and not really being at the front of the line. Like, you know, I've been a manager before and the manager is great, but you're kind of like the front of the line of everything with that. And I really enjoyed just kind of being the champion for the bands and just having fun with it because like you really have to be able to have fun with your job. So there's certain things that we do that are really cool and interesting and like really fun. And I think the creativity that comes within PR is something that like attracted me to it and is why I jumped into this.
For me specifically, this is like my first big girl job, I guess you could say. And so I graduated from college smack in the pandemic in 2020. But I pursued like music business as my major, and I did a bunch of like digital marketing internships with record labels and venues in and around like New York, Philly, New Jersey area. And with that, you know, I realized I had such a passion for marketing, but there was a PR class that I took in college. And then I realized that I really did like the public relations side of the music industry. And so my capstone project actually was me running my own PR business. So I represented like a bunch of bands local to me, and, you know, I got some really cool experience out of it, you know, pitching for these, you know, developing artists and getting them on placements that, you know, definitely would not have been possible without like the constant work that I put in. And so with that, I took, obviously the pandemic happened, took a year of some soul searching.
We all did soul searching.
Yeah. And then I met Steph actually through a Facebook group. You know, networking is key here, and I made a post, put myself out there, and then me and Steph got to talking, and then she basically was like, hey, join me, you know? And yeah, that's pretty much how I got to where I am now.
That's so awesome.
Yeah.
And networking is key. And I know, like, because I've had a couple publications in the past, and every time I would go through a Facebook page and be like, I need help. Anybody want to help? And the people I've been able to meet have been absolutely insane through there. So I think that's really important to just kind of like note visual or kind of note in general.
Networking is a major part of PR too. I mean, it's like it's I would say probably our number one, you know, thing. Yeah. So in order to be a good publicist, you kind of have to already be a good networker, and that was kind of, it was all perfect timing. It was like I was starting to get busier than I expected at the start of starting this company, and Gabi was looking for a way to like get a job in this industry in the middle of a pandemic, and she did. She put herself out there on the Facebook group and was like looking at, into other job opportunities to do music PR. And I just hit her up and I was like, hey, I started a company and I need help.
Basically.
So something that has always kind of interested me and kind of very curious, because I feel like everybody's going to answer this differently in the music realm, the line between PR and management and where like that kind of blurs. So for you guys, what does that kind of like relationship look like?
Yeah, I can definitely take the reins on this because I did both jobs at one
Yeah.
point. But the line is very thin, and I think that PR and management is a symbiotic relationship. So symbiotic, is that the word? I'm talking about Venom here. um, but it's very collaborative. The managers that we work the best with, we're constantly brainstorming, or they're bringing different, talking angles to the table, or asking our advice on things. And it's also just a general respect of understanding timelines and kind of just working together on what's possible. The timeline thing is a really big thing. And I think when it comes to management, it's really important for us to kind of have that two-way conversation to say, hey, you want to release this album in 3 months, but this is, on the PR scale of getting, actual coverage, it's a really tough timeline to do that. So, we'll kind of provide our feedback and, work with them. And then there's also the times, and this is really unique to our company and other companies very much like us, where sometimes we have a band who doesn't have a manager. And in that respect, while we hope that the bands are able to self-manage themselves, they're not always the best at it, or, it's tough. It's a lot of work. I mean, it's literally another person's job for a reason. So a lot of the times, like, we kind of have to put on that management hat though, and say like, okay, this is what you need. We need new promo photos from you guys. We need to work out a timeline. Like, we're kind of the ones who step into that role, and we still play the publicist part, but we have to also like put on a little bit of a management hat and really push them to, kind of work with us and, negotiate timelines, negotiate expectations. And I think that's another one is, a manager is usually the person to, drive expectations and kind of manage expectations. Without a manager there, we're also in that position. So it's a lot of us educating our clients, and we kind of have to jump into that part of the management role of, hey, this is how the music industry is. This is the current climate. This week is a great example. Unfortunately, there is a big tragedy in the music world this week. And, the chances of us getting something big and significant in terms of a story is slim to none right now. And, those are the conversations and like the expertise that we kind of have to know and recognize and also communicate, whether it's to a manager or to a band. So it's very hand in hand. Like, I would say, like, you could very easily switch from being a publicist to a manager. I did it a couple years ago. And, it's definitely more technical when you're a manager. It's a lot more organization. But when you're a publicist, it's very much strategizing and working together.
Interesting. I've always like been very curious about kind of how those roles kind of play in hand. I think there's a general understanding of like obviously who does who, but then in regards to like, something, there's an album coming out, but like, where is that not argument, but kind of like that,
sometimes it's an argument.
I didn't want to assume. But I think you explained that so well. And thinking about people who are kind of big music fans in high school, they go to college, they want to do this. And I feel like, Gabi, you'll probably have a really great answer for this since you are kind of in that seat right now. Where is kind of the best way to start? Where, like, I know that's a very loaded question, but kind of taking those baby steps forward into being like, okay, so this is where I want to do, this is where I want to focus my time. Here's good volunteer work that might work. What kind of was more beneficial to both of you kind of getting your reins in the industry?
Oh my God. Okay, yes. I could definitely answer this because I have a lot to say about this. So I actually went to a performing arts high school. Not a lot of people obviously have access to that, but that was like an added benefit that I had because I gained a lot of, I guess, insight into the industry because I did basically video. It was called entertainment technology. That was the major that I had. And so we encompassed video and music. So music was like I would learn, you know, history to audio production, but then also I did a lot of live production because we would help with all the shows that happened um, at our school. So that was like an added benefit that I learned because I had gained insight like how like live event operations work basically. Um, but the key here is like if you're a high school student and you want to like you know boost up your resume and for colleges pertaining to music business, um, I highly suggest volunteering for a like music magazine. There are so many, you know, magazines out there, blogs that are looking for volunteer writers. And even though it's not paid work, you know, you're putting yourself out there and you're trying to build, you know, just your connections, but also like build something to show that, hey, I have such an interest in being in this industry. And that's actually technically what the first thing that I did. I used to write basically for a music publication. And then in college, like I said, I studied the music industry. So in college, I went to a school that wasn't necessarily known for the arts. Um, you know, it's this basically the program that I got into was like just developing, but given that I'm like in proximity to like the Philadelphia area, there's like a lot of resources that I could draw from. So the area was kind of key for me and why I went to the school that I went to. Um, and during that time, my freshman year, there was like not really a music scene. Like I grew up basically, I mean, like for high school and stuff, like by Asbury Park and, you know, by the Jersey Shore. And even though, yes, everyone thinks about Jersey Shore and the reality TV show, which I stand, by the way.
To be clear.
To be clear. Um, but there is such a big music scene in that area, especially because like Bruce Springsteen is from there. You know, everyone talks
Just
about
some guy.
Joe. Yeah, you know, like
casual.
And so, yeah, like I think he has like a home in Freehold. I think.
He does.
I think
And
he
my
does,
dad,
too.
Another story.
my dad sold Bon Jovi a car when he worked. He worked in
Ooh.
Freehold.
Everything's interconnected.
New Jersey.
Yeah.
It all makes sense. It all makes sense.
But yeah, so I mean, growing up along that area, like I was very much invested into like the local music scene. Like I would go to basement shows, like even though I wasn't throwing shows myself, like it was the fact that I went to them and like I, you know, got to know the people there. Um, and so when I went to college and I noticed there wasn't really that kind of scene, especially me going into a school where I didn't really know anyone basically, besides like my best friend, we decided alongside a couple other students to basically create this club that was dedicated to establishing that music scene. So it turned out to be like one of the fastest growing clubs on campus.
Wow.
Like we would throw shows on and off campus, and it just really became such an important part of the school itself. And kids ended up just coming to the school just to be part of our club, which is crazy to like think about it now, but that's like how important this club became for students like myself. And so with that, like given that I was technically part of the executive board, like I had to oversee like, you know, a bunch of students and create like a collaboration basically like between like live event planning, you know, to like media, which I essentially did a lot of my focus on. You know, just pretty much trying to organize like live events. And that was like super cool because you know, not a lot of kids get to like do that essentially. So, you know, if you go to like a small school, like, and you're thinking like, oh, like I don't have like the resources or I don't think I could do this, like you can, like I did it, you know, like it's all about just getting that conversation started and just like putting flyers around your school. And next thing you know, like you're gonna get like 100 people in a house and it's gonna be quite hectic. Like,
Yeah.
um, And so then, like, with that, I pretty much took all of that experience. And when I went to apply for internships, I actually kind of started a bit early. I know normally people do like junior and senior year, which is like any like logical average like person would do. Me, crazy person, decided to like go for an internship my freshman year.
Me too.
Yeah. So
Who
we're on
did
the
it?
same wavelength.
Yeah.
And so yeah, like I said, I did have like some music journalism experience. I just started this club, like, and so I started off at a very small venue, you know. And a lot of kids, like when they pursue internships, like they pursue the big guys. But unfortunately, like nowadays, to reach for the big guys, you got to start small and, you know, show that you are capable into reaching that level. And that's what happened. Like I did so many basically like little internships with you know smaller venues, and then it turned into me getting an opportunity to do like a year-long internship with Atlantic Records.
Heck yeah.
And that was like a big thing. Like, yeah, I'm not gonna lie, I cried. Like, I was like, you know. And so with all of that, like getting all that experience, you know, obviously like I was like, hey, like I have like such a decent like, you know, resume, like I have like all these different things that I've done. And, you know, getting into like the PR space, like especially in the pandemic, like, you know, it's a lot of like trying to put yourself out there and just trying to meet the right kinds of people. And, you know, my biggest advice for like kids who are, you know, still looking for jobs, because I know like plenty of my friends are still looking for them. Literally, besides Indeed, LinkedIn, like, okay, those are okay. But Facebook groups are key here. And I stress that a lot because I have now joined so many different groups where I see people posting for like job opportunities, whether it's like part-time social media work, you know, or basically a part-time assistant at like a, you know, a small publicity agency. Like they just exclusively post them in these groups, and you won't find them on LinkedIn and you won't find them on Indeed. So it's like basically I have to stress, like, if you are not in Facebook groups, you need to be on them in order to be in the music industry now.
Yeah. Hate to stand Facebook, but it's the it's the enemy you have to sleep with in this industry, you know. And it's a really important. And just to piggyback off of like something that Gabi said is, you know, don't shoot for the heights right out of school or, you know, for your first thing. It's okay to start. I started scrappy as hell. I mean, you know, I've been doing this for years where as I said, I started booking crappy shows in high school and then like doing merch for friends' bands. And then from that, like I toured a little bit. And from that, I ended up on a major label's street team. And then from there, like grew into an actual PR role, you know, and it happens where, you know, and actually I started as an unpaid intern and then became like the PR director of that company that I started as an unpaid intern. Wow. So I think it's, you know, it's also just take the risks and take the steps to get yourself out there. And also like, if you're not quite sure what you want to do, this is the best industry to kind of test the waters and do a little bit of everything. Like just as Gabi said, she did a little bit of everything. I've done a little bit of everything, you know, there. And I think that also makes you a better publicist in the end, because as I mentioned before, the proverbial spoke of the wheel, now you understand what everybody else is working with and you understand, you know, how everything else is functioning and what else goes into a band that you need to work with. So yeah, I would say like take internships, take volunteer opportunities, street teams. Street teams are still relevant and they're great because it's literal boots on the ground marketing. And you're learning how to just kind of start that initial ball rolling of like getting the word of mouth out there. You know, I literally, you know, the street team that I worked on was Fueled by Ramen Records before they were bought by Atlantic. And, you know, I street teamed Paramore's Riot album, and like they were nobody back then, you know, and they're huge now. And I think that's, you know, that's the kind of stuff that it's like, it will kind of grow with time. This is an industry where patience is really important. It's also important as an artist. You know, things don't happen overnight. They seemingly happen overnight, but that's because you have publicists who make it seem that way.
Period.
Yeah, period. So, I think it's, I see a lot of people really wanting like instant gratification, like,
Yeah.
how do I get hired at UMG tomorrow? And, I think it's make sure that you're getting that boots in the ground, because this is an industry where there is a lot of competition and there is somebody that will do your job for cheaper or free everywhere. So it is, not to sound harsh, but it's tough. Like, you got to do a little bit of fighting and you got to get a little scrappy at times. Like, I've toured with a band full of dudes and didn't shower for weeks at a time just because that's part of the job sometimes, So I think it's okay to be a little scrappy and to take risks, because those risks eventually turn into rewards. Just might take some time.
100%. I think about, because I was on Fuel by Ramen Street Team for like 6 months, I think, and it was while I was in high school, but I didn't realize like how accessible that kind of made me to like reach out to people on their team that I was already in contact with, because they were sending me emails about 500 posters coming to my house.
Yeah.
And I didn't really take advantage of that. And that's like one of my biggest regrets. No, not biggest regrets. One of my big regrets today, because it's like, I could have been like, 3 years ahead of like where I wanted to be or what I kind of was closer to figuring out what I want to maybe do. So it's really interesting, and being able to like see that now is really fantastic, because it's still happening and like people are still doing this. And I think especially with like fan engagement and kind of that realm of things, and that is a whole conversation, and seeing those people grow into music people who are in the industry is just absolutely fabulous. I am kind of curious though, because my degree is in radio television production, and that is very much a degree that prioritizes experience over knowledge, or I guess I don't want to say like book knowledge, for lack of better terms, of I like, you should skip a class if you have a opportunity to go video something somewhere. Like, that is kind of like where it lies. Do you think that PR is kind of one of those fields too?
Absolutely. I think that it's good to have the book knowledge. And, like, I wrote a thesis on PR and basically wrote a book about it. There's not really a lot of like educational books about PR out there, though. If there are, they're outdated, they're ever changing, because it is just such a chaotic world. And I think building your portfolio is really what matters, because, you can know everything you know about PR and be trained by the book really well, but that doesn't necessarily mean you have connections at certain outlets yet. You've made these networking connections. There's a lot of trial and error when it comes to pitching. Gabi just rolled her eyes, but like, there really is. I mean, there are so many times that, you have to be really careful about who you pitch and why you're pitching them, and be really meticulous about it. And those conversations take a lot of time to build. And I think like, having a solid portfolio and showing, Gabi, she came to me with a portfolio. She already, had this business that she did. She already had features that she secured. So I was, confident in knowing that she knew how to do the job.
Yeah.
But, she didn't come to me like already knowing how to get a feature on MTV. That happens with this job and with this role and with the time and dedication we put into the work. So I think it is really important to really build your portfolio from the ground. And that's why taking internships and, doing all of this side work is so important, because you're going to have something to show. You're going to have projects that you've completed, or, really cool, features that you've done, or just been part of an album release campaign that, did really well. And those opportunities are things that you can eventually show in your portfolio and say, like, I did A, B, and C. I've had this experience. And then, especially in independent PR specifically, people will be a lot more confident. You're not contracted through a label. People are trusting you with, PR is very expensive. So they're trusting you with a lot of money, and they want to make sure that they know that you're going to do the job. And 9 times out of 10, I'm sending people my entire last 10 years portfolio of features that I've done, just to make them confident that like we know how to do our work. So that's, definitely, I think the same as, video and TV production, where like you kind of have like a reel of a portfolio. Like we have the same portfolio of news clippings and, interviews that we've set up.
Gabi, do you have anything to add to that, or did she perfectly sum that up? Because she's a queen and that, I'm fabulous, absolutely fine.
No, I mean, she was basically to the T here. Like, a portfolio is everything, especially not even just like PR, but pretty much like all different kinds of like roles in the industry, in the entertainment and whole. But yeah, and like Steph said, like when we connected, I was like, hi, here is stuff that I did. Like, I was just like, here are press releases I created. Here is examples of, like Steph said, like interviews I've secured. And, that spoke for itself. Like, yes, like my resume was extensive, but like this is the work that I created. And that is very important, like when you do like pursue for those opportunities, to have something to show what you did versus like, here is my resume and this is an outline of what I did. Like if I have a ton of like digital marketing, like campaigns and activations that I created. And it's like, this is stuff that I can show that, hey, this is how extensive my experience was.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Heck yeah. And looking back at both of your portfolios, is there something that is your absolutely favorite thing, campaign, whatever that looks like that you've done thus far? Or even like, oh, you're doing it soon, but I can't talk about it.
Gabi, you go first on this one.
Okay. So I have like two things. Specifically within this year, working on the M.A.G.S campaign was definitely my favorite because that was my first like album campaign to work on. And, that was a lot of months of pitching and, getting like so many different kinds of opportunities for M.A.G.S. And, now like I just saw Elliot live because he just did a stop in Philly and like
did you
seeing
cry?
the crowd. Yeah, like I'm not gonna lie.
I
Like
cry.
I was like
I cry.
I was like a little like emotional because it's like, there were so many people just like singing along and like jumping up and down and going crazy for his set. And it was like such a heartwarming experience because it's like, hey, like at the beginning of this year, like I did so much work to get to this artist, like where he is now. So that was definitely one of my favorite campaigns. The second one, actually, when I was doing my internship at Atlantic Records, I basically joined in when Lizzo was not who she is now. So we did a lot of, like basically talking with influencers to try to get Lizzo like on like, their like Instagram like posts or like, like Netflix shows. Like it was like crazy, like the extensive like, pitching that we did for her. And then on top of that, like when she finally went viral, I was so happy because when I started listening to her music, I was like, why isn't she popular yet? I was like, this is banging. Like it was insane to me that she was not, big. And then when she finally got to that moment, it was such a heartwarming experience because it's like I was able to like basically work on an artist campaign like from, when she was this and now she's like this. Like it was cool.
Aww.
So yeah, those are my two faves.
That's so cool. And you guys did such a great job on the M.A.G.S thing. I had never heard of him until you guys had sent me him, and now I really like he's constantly on my playlist, and I always tell my friends to listen to him, and it's just incredible.
He's the best. Yeah. I would say my favorite is kind of, similar to Gabi, is feeling the pride of like going from nothing and then finally seeing your work come to fruition at the end. I always cry. Always. And, M.A.G.S is definitely one of those. Like, it was so, I mean, just seeing like the feedback, the natural feedback coming in where, my best friend texted me and she was like, this girl at my office is playing M.A.G.S on her Spotify. Like, I'm so proud of you, and just like these like random moments or like, even with the Five Guys thing, like seeing tweets, like I just walked into Five Guys and discovered your music. I was like, what the fuck is my life, And like that stuff is really cool. And then I think like for me in doing this as long as I have and really like being at the independent level this entire time too, like my biggest proud moment is, I am a 35-year-old what's it called, Zillennial or whatever, like what are you like, I
You're a
don't know.
millennial. You are
I'm not,
millennial.
I'm a millennial, but I'm like on the older end of the millennials. I don't know.
Yeah.
But like whatever the hell you want to call me, but like I grew up on Blink-182, No Effects, Rancid, and MXPX, and they're my fucking client now. Like that. So like that was like the probably I think my best, still proudest moment is, you know, I represent a band that I've been listening to since I was 13 years old. Like shameless plug, Chick Magnet was the first song I ever learned how to play on bass. So it's really cool, like being able to work with like one of my idols that I've been idolizing since I was 13, you know, and you know, all these years later, that putting in the dedication and the work like got me this really cool artist that doesn't really trust, you know, a lot of PR. They've done this for so long themselves. Like they're so DIY. 30 years next year, you know. And they haven't needed PR, but like they trusted in me to kind of take on parts of their campaign, which that felt really cool because, you know, they noticed that through my work that like I do things a little differently. Like we do PR, as I mentioned before, with a marketing, you know, hat on, with an artist management hat on.
Yeah.
But yeah, those are definitely like my proud moments. And then just anytime getting to see a show live, like finally seeing the bands like play after we've released their music. I just came back from Fest and I saw, you know, Virginity and Debt Neglector play live, and like that was, I mean, Casey broke his leg on stage, but that's fine. He did great regardless, and it's another story. You know, it was really cool just to see, you know, as Gabi said, just to see the crowd and just to see people responding to all of the work that you've done. Because especially like we're behind a screen, we're behind a computer, we don't get to feel that live energy all the time. So it is an extremely like proud moment when you really get to feel like a crowd like that. And just, you know, just one more time that I cried this year. One of the bands I worked with when I was working with the management company, but I've also known this band since I was like boots on the ground DIYing music stuff, Ice Nine Kills.
Yeah.
And we saw them play in where was it? At launch in September. And like it was like their own concert. It sold out. I can't even count how many people were there. It was the biggest crowd I've ever seen them play in front of. And I've seen them play on several Warped Tours, like then I've toured on Warped Tour with, and those are usually huge crowds. I was crying like a baby. Like there were, if you looked at me, I was standing in the sound booth, like with their manager, who was my old boss. And if you looked at me, I literally was like the entire time sitting there with my hands under my eyes, like wiping tears off my face, like just like literally hysteric. Like I look like a psychopath, especially since like they're all about murder and stuff. And I'm like,
people are looking over like, what is she crying about?
The funny is like they knew. What was funny is like they knew. Like Spencer's girlfriend Nadia was standing right next to me. Like she came up and hugged me. She's like, "You're mom. Like you're like the band's mom." I'm like, I'm so proud right now. Like, but it is. It's like, you know, that was the Silver Screen Part 1 was the last album I worked on before I left that management company. So like to see them go from like where they were with that album to where they are now, like it was a proud moment because knowing them as long as I have, knowing how long they've been hustling. And, you know, once again, for anyone getting into the music industry, it takes a long time. Because I've seen this band hustling for over 10 years, and now they're finally getting on the covers of magazines. They're getting these full page spreads. They're getting like the national and international recognition that they deserve. But it took like 6 albums to get there, maybe more. And I think, you know, a lot of people don't realize that because they see the bands or the artists when they start to blow up. And, you know, there's a lot of history back there and maybe name changes even that they don't know about. You know, band I used to work with a long time ago called the Walking Sticks. They were like one of my first, you know, indie artists that I ever worked with. They now go by Shade and they're all over the radio, you know, like, I mean, it's like so like, you just don't know the history of these artists all the time too. Like you don't see all of the work that goes behind the scenes. So to finally see something like that come to fruition to like a massive audience, it feels like, just as Gabi said with Lizzo, like it just feels so good because it's a lot of work.
Yeah. I have never thought about that, seeing like your guys' perspective from seeing an artist live. Like obviously like I like seeing
Right.
anybody live is, but I never have even thought about that concept of like how emotional it would be to see
Yeah, I'm
somebody for the
getting
first
goosebumps
time.
and chills just
Yeah.
talking about it. Like, it's that
Mhm.
emotional of an experience.
And it's
I
like,
can imagine, and I'm like mad at myself. Like, why didn't I even think like that is an experience that happens for a publicist? Of like, I obviously like you see it like in emails every day, or you see it in whatever articles that come out that you've worked on and stuff. But like in person, like maybe it's just I'm not in a live music mentality that much anymore because of this last
Yeah,
year.
oh my
But like
gosh,
that
right?
click, wow, that's
yeah,
amazing.
it just like solidifies everything, you know.
Yeah.
So definitely.
That's so cool. I feel like I'm getting chills just thinking about like the idea of seeing that because like you see a band when they have like 50 people in the crowd and then you see when they have 1,000 and that's alone like as a fan is crazy but like as somebody who had literally like the
Yeah.
boots on the ground like you said and like a hand in that like oh my god I'd sob like a baby. Oh god.
Oh yeah. Well, and it's also like when you've seen the band when they've only had 50 people in the
Yeah.
crowd, and then all of
Mhm.
a sudden you see them like I remember, I don't know how much you know Long Island, but like Amityville Music Hall, which is like the
Hmm.
tiniest little venue in the world. Like I saw Ice Nine Kills play there 100 years ago. I'm from Long Island. Like I saw them play there 100 years ago to like 10 people. Like I think
Yeah.
I was like the only fan that showed up, and it was because I already knew them and was their friends. I mean, this is, and I think that's the struggle that a lot of artists face on a daily basis. And like, it's just part of the game that you just got to keep on going and like, not let any negativity or feedback or anything get you down. Like, I think a lot of times too, like our artists, like they see our feedback that we send from like our press contacts,
Hmm.
and they get so upset. They're like, "Is this normal? My voice sucks." Blah
Oh
blah
no.
blah. And it's like, no, 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 honey. Like everybody's an armchair critic. Have you ever seen a
Yeah.
comment thread on Facebook? Like, just take it with a grain of salt. You
Oh
know,
God.
like look at Nickelback. They make so much money and everyone hates them. Like, I mean,
Yep. Yep. There is that.
it doesn't really matter.
Yeah. So, in your guys' opinion, when is the moment for a band or artist to kind of reach out to PR? Because obviously there's a moment where they probably are going to need a manager and probably need PR because they can't handle that anymore. When is that moment for you guys, in your opinion?
When they can't handle it anymore.
Okay.
Yeah,
Solid.
I would say, if you have become successful enough on your own as an artist that you've built a brand, you've built a following, you are consistently releasing music. You have a full album already done, or you are putting investment into music videos. If you are able to see your band or artistry as a business, which is what it really should be at the end of the day, and you're willing to invest in, expensive things like music video or production or PR, then you're probably ready for PR. I definitely think, planning and seeing yourself as a business and being at the point where you're able to kind of perform with yourself as a business. You have a steady income stream. You're able to pay the bills off, because that's also what labels are looking for too, a lot of times these days. They kind of want a band that's already a little bit developed.
Hmm.
That's what press looks for. If you don't have good promo photos, if you don't have good content, like there's not much we can do. So, making sure that you're able to put in that time and the investment.
Heck yeah. Let's go. Do you have anything to add
What
for that one,
Steph
Gabi?
said.
Ah,
Basically what Steph said. Like that's to the T right there. As long
this
as
is why I like
it's
Gabi. She just says what Steph said.
yeah.
The ultimate hype
Well, I mean,
woman.
like it's answering it. But yeah, I mean, like that is the appropriate time to get, PR, like, even just management in general. Like, it's it is an expense, and it's like if you are willing to put in that effort and if you're willing to invest into your business, then yeah, like you should be able to pursue PR, confidently for sure.
Yeah, and 2022 is quickly
Mhm.
approaching. I'm sure you guys are very aware of that. I am hyper aware of that. It's scary. It's fine. The year's gone
Yeah.
by so quickly. And I've seen a couple times on your Instagram that you guys have teased additional services other than PR. So what does 2022 look like for Whoa, That's Fresh?
Yeah. So I have, again, just friends in the industry, and then also like we've all experienced this giant existential crisis that's the last 2 fucking years.
Yep.
So
Mhm.
we've kind of, I've really in the 1 year of being a company have banded together a bunch of badass ladies with varying backgrounds. We just brought on Paige Owens, who is the former editor-in-chief of Alternative Press, but she's also like really great at social media, at journalism. So we'll be doing a lot more. Like yesterday we did like a really in-depth like media training coaching session, which we normally don't have the bandwidth to do. So we're going to be able to start doing that, like mock training sessions, things like that. More a la carte writing, bio writing, any kind of like materials we need. Social media management will also be a service that we're going to bring on. And then my girl Ashley, who is forever my best friend in PR. She worked with me at my old PR agency. We have literally been together and friends ever since. She's my reference for jobs. I'm her reference for jobs. We've known each other a hell of a long time, and we've worked together as publicists. So we have a really good symbiotic working relationship. And she just joined our team as well, helping me kind of spearhead like operations and administrative stuff. But her bread and butter is festivals, events, and touring. So she's going to be bringing a lot more, potential festivals in. She works for Dropkick Murphys and Punk on the Park and a whole bunch of like dope punk festivals. So one thing that we're going to be doing this winter is like Punk Rock and Paintbrushes is an art show that we're doing in LA for charity. Ooh. So that's something that she brought to the table, and like another potential music festival next year. So she's going to bring more of like those event-based services and also just like networking connections as well for our artists. So we're building up into like a full-fledged little agency. It's pretty cool. Yeah. It's only been a year. It hasn't been a year. It's weird.
I was gonna say, I feel like I like everything like from day one. Like I was like, this is impressive. I like if you would have told me you guys have been around for 10 years, I'd be like, yeah, it makes sense. Like 100%, 100%. And you could have told me you guys are both like 75, and I'd be like, yeah, makes sense. It's insane. And I've been always impressed by you guys, and everybody I've talked to on the team. I've probably talked to Gabi the most, but everybody who I have talked to has just been absolutely amazing, and I adore you guys so much. And where do I sign up? Where do I become one of these ladies? All of the questions.
You can produce and spearhead our podcast, and
sold.
where we just bitch about everything. Like it's going to be PR therapy every Friday with the WTF team.
It doesn't have to go anywhere either. You guys can just talk to me. I'll be the non-professional therapist. So I have a game I like to play on this podcast where I make you guys quick pick a song that with the specific scenario I give you. So whatever comes up first, just throw it at me. Okay. You can be as weird as cool as possible. You are on a really long flight. The person behind you won't stop snoring, and you pick a song to blast through your headphones to try and combat it. I'm picking Industry Baby. I think those trumpets would just like clear anything that's happening outside of my brain.
Let me think.
I've got mine already. I would very loudly blast the Star Wars song by Weird Al. Or like,
there we go.
Probably anything by Weird Al, like maybe Weird Al's full album, like the whole Running with Scissors, like with the Polka song on it, and Pretty Fly for a Rabbi, like all of like that album.
Like every distraction possible.
Something just like absolutely ridiculous.
Literally, I think for me, it's like any kind of gangster rap that I can get my hands on.
Yeah.
Like, anything that has like fake shooting and police sirens, like I'm putting that on blast.
Gabi's from the city.
Yeah.
Fake shooting and tires relaxer.
It's okay. Growing up outside of DC, I feel that very, very, very much so.
We're actually outside of DC. Sorry, if you don't mind me asking that you are from.
So I live in Maryland, actually. I'm like 20-ish minutes. I'm from PG County, if you know where that is.
Yeah,
we have a band called Prince George.
Oh, yes. You have an artist from the literal city I'm from. And I've been meaning to talk about this, but I haven't had time. Prince George, yeah. Yes. That's where I live.
I know, when you say PG County, we're like, we got PG the band. Like,
It's the same. Yeah, I think I got a press release from you guys about them, and I was like, why? Where are they from? And then I did some research. I was like, literally from here.
Yeah.
Which is so funny.
Awesome.
They live in LA now, but they grew up in, like, have lived there forever, basically. And, like, that's, like, their hometown.
That's so funny. That's so weird to, like, because I feel like I live in a place that doesn't have a really big, like, music scene. So I feel like I have to go to either DC or Baltimore. So when that happens and people are like, oh, I'm from Bowie. If you know Vacation Manor, they are from here too. And I'm like, why? Where were you when I was in high school? I needed a scene here.
I feel like there's a bigger, like, metal scene, though. Because the company I used to work for that was a metal company, they were based in Silver Spring, which is, like, super random as a place as well.
And there's a couple, like, really big, alt rock producers, like Matt Squire, if you know who he is. He's from here.
Oh yeah.
I'm like, why? Where is this? Why is everybody in hiding? So the second one is you are sitting in a chair and it's wobbly. Oh no. And it breaks. You're sitting on the floor. It's embarrassing. What song is playing? I immediately think of American Idiot for obvious reasons.
That's such a good one.
Oh, I gotta think about this one.
Yeah. Oh man.
I just hear the yep, all just me sitting on the floor in my pure embarrassment. It's very easy.
Mine might be the same, but because I'm me, I'm going to say the Broadway version of the Broadway play.
There
American
we go.
Idiot on
There
Broadway.
we go. Incredible.
Oh, God.
Incredible.
Because I'm like, yeah, I mean, that's a good song if you're feeling like an idiot.
Self-explanatory, you know?
Yeah.
I really don't know. That's a good like scenario. I'm like trying to think like what would encompass me at that time, because this is something that would happen to me and it has happened to me plenty of times before.
Me too. It's unfortunate.
I don't know, but like literally for some reason Wait a Minute by Willow is like screaming at me right now. I'm not sure why.
There we go.
But...
That's a perfect one. I have one final one, and it is you are driving home from a very bad date. You have the date in the car with you. You have to pick the song to steer the emotion. I'm immediately going with this. I do this one a lot because I think it's the funniest. But this time I'm going with A-Team by Ed Sheeran for the sole fact it's the number one in the alphabet when I have like an alphabet on my Spotify. So we're just going with like the first pick.
Just first pick.
First pick. A-Team. Boom.
Oh God.
I can't think of exactly what song, but it definitely would be some kind of angry feminist punk music.
As it should.
It's like,
at that point.
Is it a bad date?
Terrible
date, right?
Every red flag you could imagine. Every red flag.
I love this
No
song.
Scrubs.
Oh!
There you go. That's
Chef's
a good
kiss.
one, actually. Literally, I love this song so much, but Bitch Better Have My Money by Rihanna is like just, this is the song that I would blast if it's a bad date, because I just feel like, you know, like, you wasted my time and I feel like I should be paid and compensated for that.
Pay me for the hour and a half. I'll send you an invoice. It will be a whole thing. Well, thank you guys for playing. I have one final question, and typically I ask this in the way of musicians. Like, if you have a platform, and with that platform, what do you want to use with it? What mark do you want to make? And I think for you guys, I think it would be important to kind of talk about as PR, as you guys handle PR, what is kind of your main goal, and what mark do you want to make through the artist, I guess would be the best way to kind of put it.
My main goal is I've always been a champion for the underdog. So it even like comes across in sports teams. I'm a Mets fan. Sorry. But you know, I think for when it comes to an artist, being the champion for the underdog, like being able, as I said, to be that person that feels that sense of pride at the end of the day when you bring somebody from something really small to finally getting the recognition they deserve. That's definitely like what this whole company was basically based on. And, you know, even like the bigger artists that we work with are very DIY in the way that they run their businesses as well. So I think it's very much like being, kind of like sticking it to the man and being able to get things done without, the, I guess, corporate or societal roadblocks that we tend to get, or monetary roadblocks even, because a lot of times people want you to pay for press, which used to be illegal.
Payola.
Yeah, like payola was illegal at one point. But I think like that's definitely on a PR perspective in working with artists, like that's what we really or I hope to do and seek out to do. And then I, my part B to that is, as a company, I really want to continue empowering women in this industry and just being a supportive environment for women in this industry, because we got it rough. It's not as easy. It's not easy.
Definitely amen to that.
Yeah.
My snaps. I guess like likewise to Steph here, like my biggest goal as like a publicist is like, yes, I want to get an artist on as many like awesome Chef's Kiss publications as possible. I want them to have an extensive feature. Like I want them to blow up. Like I am their number one fan. But at the same time too, like I want to, as a publicist, like trust is very important to me. And it's like, I really want to stress, like with the clients that I work with, the artists that I work with, like, at the end of the day, like I have your best interests at heart. And it's like, you have to trust me and you have to like listen to what I have to say. And even if it's not like, what you want to hear, like honesty is the best policy here. And, I think a lot of artists, like, even though that feedback is very scary, but in the long run, I feel like is going to be helpful, because it's like, this is the kind of feedback that you need, especially if you're like being a musician and you're trying to pursue it as a business. Like, this is kind of the stuff that you need to hear. And, that's like the biggest thing for me is just
that goes back to what we said before too, just like having the maturity to be able to take that feedback for what it's worth.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yep. It's amazing. And do you guys want to plug anything while we're here? Throw anything? Plug it all. I'm ready.
Yes. All of our socials are at WTF Publicity. Follow us. We're brand new. We've only been around a year. Doesn't look like that. It's wild, but that's and listen to all of our bands. They're great.
Well, they're Chef's Kiss.
They really are. I truthfully, like, every time I always try to listen to all of them, even if they're not normally my cup of tea. I always try to listen to all of the press releases I get in, just because I trust you guys and I trust all of your opinions.
I love that, like, your likes are also, like, so diverse, too. Like, if you've had M.A.G.S and the Rationale and, like, one of our more popular artists on before. So I think that's really cool how we like working with you, too.
Yeah.
Just besties. That's it.
Yeah, always.
Well, thank you guys for hanging out. I really appreciate it. Steph and Gabi. Well, that's fresh. Thank you guys.
Yay. Thank you.
Thank you.